Hello, I'm Renaud from Our Mountains and welcome to this Corgi Engine video. It's been a few months since I last did a video. I was focused on creating new features and working, among other things, on the top-down engine. So this video is going to focus on what's new in versions 5.2, 5.3 and 5.4 of the Corgi engine. We'll look at stuff like pushing and pulling things, the new time-related abilities, so correct time control, but also the time zones. We'll look at how to do ledge hang like that, how to create a zipline, how character swap works, instant acceleration, and also how to customize abilities with the example of the character simple tag. So the first thing we're going to have a look at today is the new pushable system. Pushable blocks were in the Corgi engine before, but you couldn't pull them. One of the reasons for that was that it was using Unity physics instead of the raycast system of the Corgi engine, and it was sort of experimental and sort of a bridge. This new system uses the Corgi controller, so your block is powered by the same thing that makes your character move, or enemies, or anything in the engine. So it's much more robust, comes with more options, and it's super easy to set up. So I'm gonna exit this and show you what works. So I'm right now in the retro push demo scene. Here I have a pushable block, and as you can see, it has a few things on it. So it has, of course, a sprite renderer, box collider. It's using rigid body just to make sure that events get registered properly. We've got a Corgi controller here where you can define how it is affected by gravity, for multiplier, etc., etc. Or you could leave most of it by default. And here we have the specifics of the pushable. So you need this pushable component. You can define a push speed. So by default, I think it's 0.1 or 0.3, but let's say I put it to 0.05. And you'll see that when I try to push the little guy, my speed is now much more reduced. If I put it to, let's say, 1, then it doesn't affect my speed anymore. What else? You can define how this block detects the ground and what it considers the ground. So by default, I recommend using platforms, one-way platforms, maybe more. And that's pretty much it for pushables. As I was saying, by default, to push or pull something, you'll have to press the free key on your keyboard. That's because there are so many actions that I have to cram a lot of inputs in one keyboard. It supports like 4 players on one keyboard. So of course, sometimes choices and byte choices have to be made. If you want to change that, that's super easy. So you go to here your project settings, input, and you find character 1 push, which is here, and here you can change the positive button for it. So instead of 3, you could have it be G maybe, and of course you can change that for all players. The next thing I want to show you today is how to play with time and time speed. Previously in the engine there was a time object, a time pickup that you could get. You could even store it in your inventory, and then you would use it. It would slow down time. What I've added in 5.2 was the ability to directly from your character control time. We're going to use the retrocopter demo today to show you how it works. So I'm in the retrocopter demo. I'm going to have a look at my copter prefab. So to find it, I'm going to go to my level manager, look at my retrocopter here, which is going to be instantiated in the scene as my playable character. So I select my retrocopter, open it, and as you can see, it has a bunch of abilities. It's able to fly. It's a retrocopter, so it does special stuff. Can handle a weapon, button activation, but nothing to control time. So I'm going to add that. I'm going to type in character, gives me a list of all the abilities, and if I add a T, I get character time control, which is what I want. So by default, if we go to our project settings, you'll see that in the input section, we have a player time control here entry, which says that the positive button for that is K, which means that if I just press play and move around, if I press K, time slows down, you see. I'm gonna make a few changes to make that more obvious. So I'm gonna set the time scale to 0.1, set the duration to something like 100. So now while I press K, and as long as I don't press it for more than 100 seconds, I'm gonna slow down time. So it's basically infinite now. I could decide to have the time being looped or not. So the time scale either go from 1 to 0.1, or it does that smoothly. And here I have the loop speed, so that's the speed at which it will go from 1 to 0.1. I can also implement a cooldown and say, after I have used my ability to slow down time, I don't want it to be available for a certain time. So now, if I move around and press K, you see I slow down, which can be super useful to avoid projectiles like these guys' projectiles. It feels just like in the movies. That's a fun ability, to play with. Quite easy to set up. Another fun thing you can do is create time zones. So these act pretty much like the gravity zones do. Gravity zones, of course, affect gravity. Time zones will affect time. Let's create one to see how it works. So to do that, you create an empty object in your scene. You rename it to, let's say, time zone. Put it maybe here. And you'll want to add a box collider to the, or at least a collider to the, could be a circle as well, doesn't matter. You want to change the size to, let's say, 10. So now every time my character, or any character really, will enter this zone, as long as it matches the right conditions, time will be affected. To have it work, I'm gonna add another component called time zone. This is an extension of the button activated zones, so it's something you'll find throughout the engine. Works for portals, zones, gravity zones, stuff like that. Allows you to have a prompt show if you want, and have that activated by a button press. But for this example today, I'm just gonna say it auto activates, and it doesn't even require the button activation ability. I'm gonna say it's unlimited, don't want to show prompt. And here, instead of having it duration based, so this would mean that when I enter the zone, it modifies the time for a certain time. I want it exit based. So as long as I'm in the zone, I want time to be slowed down. I'm gonna say that time should be 0.2 of its normal time scale. And I'm gonna set that thing to is trigger over there and press play. And you're gonna see that as soon as I go below that yellow block over there, time slows down, I can shoot, and when I exit, time goes back to normal speed. The next thing we'll want to have a look at today is ledge hanging. So as you can see, I'm in the retro push scene, by the way, and if I jump on these gray ledges, I can attach to them, and if I press up, I can get up like that, which is really nice. And that was the most requested feature in the engine ever. I get thousands of requests for it. And what took me so long is that I wanted to find a nice and easy way to set it up, because it can get tricky, and I'm happy to say I think I found an elegant way of doing it. So let's see how it's set up. The first thing you want to do is select your character and add a new ability to it. So in this case, the Retro Corgi already has it. It's called Character Ledge Hang. What this one does is, allow you to hang to ledges, and it's going to be responsible for updating the animations. And the main setting you can set on it is, in its inspector, is the name of the idle animation to go back to after a certain duration, after the ledge climbing animation. You can also define a minimum hanging time before being able to move to that. And what it does is in your animator, and by the way, don't necessarily do an any state pattern like that. It's just that for the demos, I have so many states that it's just the most convenient, but you'll probably want to go for something more traditional, you know, where you go from idle to walk, walk to run, run and walk to jump, stuff like that. Anyway, that ability will be responsible for updating these two parameters here, ledge hanging and ledge climbing. And that's pretty much it. And once you've got that set up on your character, you'll want to set up things in your scene as well. So in the retro push scene here, we'll have these ledges. We'll have the right ones that go on the right of your platform and the left one that go on the left of your platform, but they both pretty much work the same. They are simple sprites. You could have models for that. It doesn't really matter. What you're going to need is a box collider 2D on it. And as you can see, this one is a little offset. So the box collider 2D is this green box over there. I could decide to offset it like that, you know, but usually you'll want it just next to your ledge, and you want to make sure that its trigger is checked. And then you want your ledge script. So on it, you can define the grab direction. So that's going to make your character face either left. So in our case, we want the character to face left, and on this one, we would want it to face right. And then we have the hang offset and the climb offset. So when climbing, we want the character to be offset to this position, the blue one, and once the climb is finished, we want to teleport it to this position. And I'm gonna press play and move this thing somewhere else so we can see what happens in the scene as I do it, and you'll see what these offsets are for. So I'm gonna go and climb to this, and as you can see, I'm hanging to this blue offset right there, and when I press up, I get teleported to the yellow one. And that's really as simple as that. Another new thing introduced, I think, in 5.4 was the zipline, a feature surprisingly requested an incredible amount of times. So I guess Broforce had an impact. So this one is like a derivative of the rope system that's been in the engine for a few versions now. And the way it works is I have a line, I jump on the zipline, get down the zipline. It's as easy as that. And you'll see that it's basically a combination of things that were already existing in the engine. So if we look at how it's set up in the scene, we have a retro zipline here. It's this object that, you know, includes a bunch of stuff. It's made of poles, which, as you can see, you can reposition, and the line gets drawn properly. And we also get, so you could have it work like that, really. And we have a grip that you want to position, of course, over there. And the grip will be responsible for locking your character to a pass movement. And the pass movement is defined by handles. And as you can see, if I try to move them, I can't, because there's a script that makes sure that the handles are correctly positioned on the poles. And that script is the zipline component that I want usually at my top level here. I'll be able to define a line renderer, a grip. So the grip is the little collider here, and it comes, in our case, it comes with a visual. And well, the poles and the line renderer offset based on the poles. So if I move that, you see that my line renderer gets drawn above the poles, well, slightly more than usual. So I've modified the position, and you see that if I press play again and go there, I moved along the zipline. you could make it more complex, of course. This uses pretty much the same systems as both the rope and the moving platforms. So it should be familiar if you're experienced with the engine by now. Another feature that got requested quite a lot recently was the ability to have instant movement. So something like the walk movement in Mega Man, for example. And that's something you could already do sort of by tweaking your input settings and stuff like that, but it wasn't as simple as a checkbox, so I changed that. And it's now really super easy. So if you select your character and go into character horizontal movement, you see that right now instant acceleration is not checked. So if I move, there's a slight delay before reaching peak acceleration. You know, it's not 0, 1, it's 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and 1. But if I check it, now it's instant. So it's a subtle change, but something, you know, a lot of people care about, so now it's an option. In a previous video, I showed a feature that had been requested a lot, which was character switch. So character switch was the ability to press a button, and in this case it's P, and switch to a completely different prefab. So now I have a character that can fly, and I'm back to a regular, you know, initial Corgi guy. And I think that was really fun. I also added an ability to switch just the model, so you wouldn't substitute the whole prefab, just the appearance of your character. And in version 5.4, I went one step further and added character swap. So there's a minimal demo for it called minimal character swap, and if I press play on it, you'll see that it takes things a bit further by having a scene where you've got a bunch of characters that can be AI driven. You know, some of them are walking, jumping every once in a while, stuff like that. And if I press play, I'm gonna take control of another one of these guys, stopping whatever it was doing. You know, I think the yellow one was randomly patrolling, and now I switch to the blue one that stopped jumping, and the yellow one is back to patrolling again. So that can be really useful if you're into games like, you know, Lost Vikings and stuff like that. And as you'll see, it's quite easy to set up. So to get this to work, you'll need two things. The first thing is on your characters, all of them, including the one you'll instantiate from the level manager, you'll want to have a character swap ability. So that's this one over there. As you can see, this guy, the yellow one, has an AI brain. He patrols within bounds, that's what he does. And on the character swap, you want to make sure that you specify the right order. So it goes from 0 to X, and a player ID. So in this case, it's a single player scene. So all your player IDs on all these guys should be player 1. And as you can see, we'll have number 1 will be the green one. Then we have the yellow one, the blue one, and the red one. And then you'll want to have in your scene a character swap manager, and on it you'll say, okay, I want this input entry to be used. So in this case, it's player 1 swap character that is defined in Unity's input manager right here. So that's the P button, and I want that to work for player 1. And so what it does is every time it gets a P input, it switches to another one of these guys that are equipped with the character swap ability. Doesn't take much more than that, and it's a lot of fun. There's one last thing I wanted to show you, and that's how to change the input for an ability when you want to change more than just the button. So if you want to change more than just the button, we've seen it quite a few times already today in this video. You go to the input manager and you say, okay, I don't want to jump with space, I want to jump with U, and I'm going to jump with U. You know, that's as simple as that. That's regular Unity. But let's say a good example is the character dive. So since I think one of the first versions, you're able to jump, and if you dash, so you can dash horizontally like that, but you can also press down and dash, and that does this sort of massive dive, you know, like that. And it's a tricky combination, you know, down and dash when you're in the rush of the action. And someone said, okay, but what if I just want it to be down? And that is something that you'll need to change in the code. So this is the character dive ability. As you can see, it does a bunch of stuff. And one of them is looking at the input, and what it does in this method here is say, okay, am I pressing down? Am I pressing my dash button down, and am I having my vertical axis on my joystick or keyboard pressing down as well? And if that's the case, then we dive. So a good way to modify that is to create another ability, and I think I have one over there. Yeah, character simple dive. And as you can see, what this one does is it extends character dive and just overrides its handle input method. And now what it does is just look at the vertical axis. And if the vertical axis is below my threshold for my input manager, then I dive. I initiate the dive. And if I go to initiate dive, you'll see that it makes sure that we are not grounded or gripping or doing other stuff. You really don't have to focus on it. All you have to do is just override the handle input, and that could be done for a lot of stuff. You want your weapon to shoot when moving right or left, you know, you could do that way. It's just a few lines of code, quite simple, not as intimidating as inheritance and extending stuff could be. It's just a simple way to tweak stuff to your liking even more. That's it for today. I hope you learned something new, and I'll see you soon for a new video. Bye bye.